great to have you all join us. We're super excited to have this day come. I'm all amped up, frankly. It's like I feel like I'm running on adrenaline since about 5 a.m. today for this book launch day, years in the work, and I'm just super excited to have some time with you all to talk about how do you live a more fulfilling life, a more engaged life, and wanted to just reflect on just quickly, what a gift this is, because Brad, working with Brad has been such a gift for my life. We've been working together for about 8 years now, and he's absolutely changed my life. This work has changed my life, made my amazing marriage even better, my relationship with my kids better, my relationships, just everything about it. And so, in a way, I want to start just by thanking Brad for the gift he's been in my life over the last several years, and the honor it's been to work with you, sir, to write this book, even when we had no idea what the heck we were going to write about.
Well, thanks, Tom. That's very kind of you. You've been a huge contribution to my life too. You've taught me a lot, especially about getting softer with people and being more gentle and doing a better job of listening, and all of those things that have been helpful in helping me, in my all my relationships, in personal, professional, etc. And I just want to echo Tom's excitement. You just said you got up at 5. I thought, oh, Tom slept in. I woke up at 2:20 this morning and I could not get back to sleep. Fought and fought and fought, and finally at 4 I said, okay, it's late enough now, I can get up. So
This is how Brad rolls. He's got amazing energy for getting up that early, which he does pretty regularly.
I thought you were going to say for an old guy.
Very experienced, lots of wisdom.
Yes, lots of wisdom.
So yeah, we're super excited for this. It really is a reflection of Brad's been doing this for 30 plus years. And we really hope that, today is about the book launch, obviously, but we hope that really it's about getting some more insights into your own life that will be helpful for you to live a more engaged life, to live a more fulfilling life. So hopefully we can deliver on that promise for you and make it as interactive as a webinar can be. And to, like I said, provide some insights along the way. So we're excited to do this, especially compared to last year. This feels like a great start to a year, because last year I got hit by a stingray out in California. I got 2 corneal abrasions to my left eye. I got COVID around Christmas time and my left eardrum ruptured. So 2023 is over and I'm okay with that. So I'm excited for 2024. And just really quick, would love to hear from where people are joining us from. So in the chat box, if you don't mind just putting your name and or where in the world you are, that'd be awesome, because we'd love to see where are we getting folks joining us from.
Steve Goldhaber from Chicago. Janelle Reed. Hi, Janelle. Wow, you guys are moving fast. Shannon Crimmins. Dan Varner from Detroit. Holy smoke. Lane Guidon. Lots of friendly names. I wish there were friendly faces too. It'd be nice if we could see you guys as well. There's Mike Ramberose, Kathleen Moore, Chide Van Houten, Mr. Castillo from Saginaw area.
Wow, fantastic. All over the country.
Steve Londo. Steve Londo, are you the Steve Londo I met about 30 years ago?
Wow, they just keep streaming in. California, Michigan, Oregon, Illinois,
yep.
Connecticut,
Rochester, Minnesota.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Minnesota, thank you for joining us. We're like I said, we're super excited. So as we mentioned before, the book does launch today and we're super excited about that. So Brad, why don't you talk a little bit about this beautiful little piece of work that we put out in the world today. I told a few friends it feels a little bit like standing naked in front of a crowd, because now we will be judged based on the quality of our books. We hope you all like it.
Yeah, I don't want this to be about the book, although obviously we're excited about the book and we want to plug the book, but You know, the reason we wrote the book, and frankly, it was really Tom's idea. The reason we wrote the book was that we can only reach so many people personally, you know, in our culture transformation programs and our coaching and in all our work. But we hope that with the book, we can put something out that's actually a series of, it's thought provoking, it's exercises, there are connections to exercises on our website, so that we tried to make it as experiential as possible, so that it's accessible, so that it's actually not just a theoretical read. So, and as I said, it was really Tom's idea. In fact, if he hadn't been pushing and kicking and biting and scratching me, I would never have done this, because I was pretty sure we couldn't do it. And when we got halfway into it, I said, maybe it's going to be okay. And this morning, we've actually gotten feedback from a bunch of people who read it that actually liked it. So I'm feeling good about it at this point. And I want to stress that we're going to take a look at, you know, this whole subject of engagement today, and how to engage more in life in general, which will, for all of us, has us be more effective as leaders. But this is kind of, you know, life engagement rather than just creating engaged cultures, but one leads to the other.
And I've got some big fans in my life, obviously, and they have a snow day today. It's freezing and it's raining and icy, and so a lot of schools got closed here in Michigan in the Detroit area. So this is what you guys aren't gonna believe, but this is what I caught my kids doing today on their snow day. It's crazy. But there's Anna, Peter, and Molly taking it in and just loving every page of it. So at least for the 10 seconds I forced them to take this picture. Kevin just put a link to the book. If you want to order it on Amazon, we would love that. If you're a CEO or you want to do like a team study with us, like a book study, it helps us actually tremendously with Amazon if you buy the copies individually. If every person buys the book separately, don't know why that is, but that's just how Amazon works. Obviously, we won't turn down a bulk order if it's easier for you, but just wanted to give you that FYI. So enough about the book for now. We'll do more complete self-serving plugs later on today, but for now, we'll jump into the subject of the day, which is the 5 foundations of an engaged life. And it all starts with engagement.
Yeah, so, you know, as we were reading the book, we were thinking about, I mean, we've really been helping organizations create a more engaged cultures for the 32 years that I've been doing this now. We didn't call it engagement at first. In fact, we didn't even call it cultures at first, because neither word were really used. But this term engagement has come about and obviously become very popular. But engagement, when we thought about it, is a function of 2 primary things. People having an aspiration that they're striving toward, and then being empowered to be able to pursue that aspiration. Tom, can we get the formula up?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, what do we mean by an aspiration, and why did we say that instead of inspiration? Because we always think of, you know, you need to be inspiring as a leader. Well, our work really focuses on, and what we've learned over the years is that each individual, if we're going to engage, we personally must have an aspiration. We must aspire to something. We want to accomplish something. We have a goal. We have something we're going for, something that gives us hope for a better future in some fashion. And once we are excited about some future, we're excited about some goal, then we need to be empowered in order to do that. And by empowered, we mean we need to have the authority to be able to pursue it if we're in an organization or even in society or even in a marriage. My wife has to empower me, in other words, give me the authority to be able to, you know, get into action. And to be empowered, to be empowered is to be allowed to use your agency, your ideas, your creativity, to take action toward whatever it is that you aspire to. If either one of those are missing, then it results in some level of resignation.
Yeah, and resignation obviously got a lot of attention over the last several years, the Great Resignation going on. And so we had started to dive into that and get curious about this to see what's behind this. And so we just found it interesting that here's some of the definitions behind it. It's an accepting, unresisting attitude or state, submission or acquiescence, to meet one's fate with resignation. Pretty fascinating when you think about it, that last term. And it makes sense because Gallup did some polls a few years ago, and they found that 2/3 of US workers feel disengaged. And of those, about 75% are actively looking for new opportunities. So if you think about that, that's an unbelievable number of folks who are resigned. And many of them are actively have already changed jobs, or they're still looking, or they quit and they stay, which is probably the most toxic because they sort of quit emotionally, but they keep showing up physically for the paycheck. And then the impact of this to our society and to our economy is mind-boggling. The American Psychology Association did a study on this and the stress related to all this, of people not being fully engaged in their work. And they estimated that it cost the US economy about 550 million days off a year. 550 million days off a year at a cost of $500 billion. 500 billion with a B. So this is not an insignificant challenge. And as leaders, we assert that it's up to us to change that dynamic. We don't get to blame the economy. We don't get to blame our boss. We don't get to blame the lack of people out there. Those are all challenging, and not to undermine those or to minimize those. But at the end of the day, it's up to us to create more engagement within our cultures and within our teams. Because the reality is, in organizations that have really good organizational cultures, this isn't happening. And so as much as we may not like it, the onus is on us as leaders to really face it head on and to tackle it. And part of the challenge we've found in working with thousands of leaders all across the country is that most of what's going on within our cultures is unconscious. We don't realize the impact that we're having to reinforce this. We don't realize that we're unconsciously resigned about some things. Now, this isn't bad. This is very human. Brad is resigned about some things. I am resigned about some things. And when we're lucky and when we're working hard, we become conscious of it, and then we can choose what to do about it. The challenge is, most of the time, though, it's below the surface. It's like the iceberg analogy. And so the trick is to become conscious of, where am I maybe resigned about some things in my life, and where can I step up and take more ownership?
And being resigned isn't always bad. I'm very resigned to the fact that the sun is going to come up in the morning and go down in the evening. I've given up a long time ago on trying to control that, which is a very good thing, because being a control freak as I am, I'd go completely crazy. But there are other areas where we become resigned, and as Tom said, we're not even aware of it. I'm 68 years old. I feel like I'm sneaking up on 70, which sounds really old to me. And I don't know how the heck I got here. And I noticed that I'm noticing like I'm resigned about some things. Like there are just some things that I've learned I just can't, I really can't do anything about that. Politics is one of them. And I tend to just kind of check out, like, why bother, so it is natural, and it's really helpful to become conscious of. But it leads us to an element of human nature that's been talked about. Abraham Maslow talked about how people need, or at the highest level, achieve self-actualization, and we become actualized when we can feel like we're making a difference, like we're making an impact. George Bernard Shaw put it much more poetically when he said, "This is the true joy in life, the being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one, the being a force of nature." The force of nature is the empowered part. It's like we empower ourselves because we're being used by a purpose recognized by ourselves as a mighty one. That's truly someone who's on a mission and not willing to let anything get in their way, empowering themselves, and it is a critical element toward or in the formula, if you will, of engagement, whether we're talking about engagement in our personal life or at work, engagement with our kids, engagement with our partner or spouse, engagement in our community and in our churches, and whatever it is that we're involved in, this is sort of a fundamental truth that Mr. Shaw is pointing us to, and one that's not addressed, at least that I'm aware of, in our educational system. You know, we don't teach kids to be focused on a purpose. So it almost happens sort of at random.
I remember I was 34 years old when I became a CEO. Very lucky to have done that. Had some great leaders and mentors in my life. And I was in a line grabbing some food at an event at one of the work functions. And I was talking to one of the employees. About halfway through the line, he asked me what I did, and I reluctantly sort of told him my title. And almost instantaneously, the conversation changed. And it's a fascinating element that we see across lots of organizations that for some reason, and there's lots of good reasons, but most of them are just interesting emotionally, that we have this view of CEOs like they're this unicorn, like they're this rare being, you know, that they were born that way with some sort of CEO gene or a school superintendent gene or, you know, nonprofit president gene. And the reality is they're just as human as the rest of us. They may have had different life circumstances, different goals, different opportunities, but at the end of the day, they've got the same challenges in life that everybody else does. And it's really helpful to not think of CEOs as some sort of unicorn, but actually that we all are CEOs, that we all are the CEO of our own life. And we like to, for all of us to be thinking about how could we become the chief engagement officer of my life? How could I create a more engaging life and a more fulfilling life for myself personally? Because most of us in the work context, we know how to put plans together. We know how to use strategic plans. We use project management software and calendars and to-do lists and all those sorts of things to really schedule ourselves. But we don't often translate that to our home lives or our personal lives. Many people spend more time planning their vacations than they do their lives. And so throughout the next few slides here, we hope that some of these questions will get you thinking about, you know, some of those areas of your life and how do you want to be more proactive in creating that engagement.
So this is a tool that we have on our website that will give you access to at the end of the webinar, called the Engaged Life Inventory. And this is a wheel that you know allows you to be able to rate kind of how do you rate in these areas. So it's a little bit blurry, but we have a number of categories. Your personal purpose, that's your sense of overall personal purpose, which for a lot of us is very unclear. Your relationship with a partner, your relationship with friends, your relationship with family, your physical fitness, your mental fitness, and your spiritual fitness. So, you know, this purpose and relationships is sort of, you know, to what do you aspire in these areas? And you might start thinking about, well, where am I really weak and where would I like to, where am I really strong and where would I like to be stronger? You know, like for me, I've always been a really hard worker at work. I have a pretty strong sense of personal purpose, but my relationship with friends has been pretty weak over the years. It's just been the last about 2 or 3 years that I've started really working on it and have made progress. So these are sort of the aspirational side. And then the 3 fitness areas are more how we empower ourselves. And we're going to walk through kind of each area and pose some questions from that tool to help you start to think about this.
Great. So here's the first section, and it's all about personal purpose. And you can see the values at the top there, the scale, you know, 1, untrue of me, 2, somewhat untrue of me, neutral, somewhat true of me, and then all the way up to 5, which is true of me. And we'd encourage you to, as you're thinking through these questions, to be honest with you. We're not going to collect the answers. This is not school. You're not being graded. It's all about you and your own learning and own edification. So be honest with yourself, because the first step towards a different future is an honest assessment of the current reality. It's honestly looking in the mirror to say, you know, how am I doing? So the purpose of my life is clear to me. How does that resonate for you? Do you feel like that's crystal clear and you've got a sense for what you're called to do? I feel that I have found my calling, whatever that may mean for you. For some of us, that may be more of a sort of religious, spiritual context. For others, it just means you found a job that you love. I am satisfied that I am making a difference with my life. My work is fulfilling. My talents and skills are well used in my work. And the people I work with and I are on a mission. Certainly there's many of these where I feel like I'm a 5 out of 5. I'm very, very blessed to get a chance to work with Amber and Brad and Kevin and lots of great folks to do the work that we do. And so I feel very, very fortunate to have quite high scores in this area. But it would make sense since this is what we help organizations do.
And the next category is relationship with your partner. And, this is one that typically we don't intentionally think about a lot, like by intentional, I mean like consciously, but, I'm engaged in an intimate, loving relationship, not just a relationship, but an intimate relationship where we can really share, really be open, be vulnerable, as has become, the term with one another. I create romance in my life. I have a partner that I share my life with. When I look at this, and I'm just going to talk while you guys, kind of jot down some ratings for yourselves. When I look at this, I think, yeah, I'm engaged in an intimate, loving relationship. I've been married for 42 years. I consider it to be one of the greatest successes in my life. And I definitely share my life with my partner, Gwen. We've been through a lot in 42 years. So I'd give myself 5 in those areas, but I create romance in my life. Yeah, not intentionally. I don't have a lot of focus on that. So looking at that, I think, wow, yeah, that would be really valuable to get focused on. And romance, at this age looks different than it did 30 years ago, If I'd have to give some thought to what does that look like, it probably means some travel and just hanging out and spending time together.
Should I put you on the spot, Brad, and make you commit to something in front of the whole audience here?
No.
All right, we'll give you a break. Let's keep going. So, relationship with friends. I have sufficient number of close friends. My friendships nourish me, and I make myself available to my friends. Those first two, I feel like I'm again very lucky and very blessed. The third one, I don't know that I'm doing such a great job of it over the last several years. Frankly, I've been pretty consumed by my wife and my 3 kids, and for which I'm very proud. I want that to be first in my life, but I've probably not been as available to my friends as I'd like to be, and so that's actually something I've been working on for the last couple months, and trying to really dig into what would that look like going forward. Because the reality is, there was a great study by Grant and Gleck, I think it was a Harvard Business Review study. It was a 75-year study that was really diving into what is it that makes people happy? What's at the heart of that? And what they found is that the one thing, not surprisingly, is relationships. And that's really at the crux of it. And it's not relationships like quantity, obviously, because many of us have lots of friends on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, but it's really about the quality of those relationships, and to take a chance to slow down and think about, oh, how am I doing there? How are my relationships with my wife, in my case, my kids, my friends. And go ahead, Brad, and jump in with this one about family.
Yeah, I think that that last question that you just talked about, Tom, I'm satisfied with the contribution I make to my family. And you said you started working on it a couple of months ago. I just want to underline that, let's not look at this as a scorecard and like get down on ourselves if our ratings are low, because probably if you rate an area low, it's because you just haven't been attending to it. You probably just have become kind of unaware. It's like Tom said, he gets very busy with his relationship with, with his family, etc. And just notice that, oh, I'm not making myself available to friends. So if we move on to family, you know, I've created the experience of family in my life, whether or not it's with my biological relatives. You know, I know a lot of people who aren't married, don't have much of a family, yet they have a very tight-knit sense of family in their relationship. I'm satisfied with the amount of contact I have with my family, and I'm satisfied with the contribution I make to my family. You know, I'm fortunate. I have two girls. They're both married. They're both in their mid-late-ish, well, late 30s, I guess, and 6 grandkids. So I have a very strong family, but the amount of contact I have, especially with one side of them, they're about 45 minutes away. I'd like to increase that. And contribution is great. My oldest daughter just texted me and then called me last night, said, our furnace is making noise. What do we do? So there are still things that my little girls come to daddy to get solved. And frankly, there are things I go to them to get solved. So just take a minute and, you know, how would you rate yourself in these areas?
So aspiration, Brad talked about this earlier, right? This is the first part of that engagement formula is aspiration. And again, this isn't something that somebody else gives you. It's something that you aspire to. The only one that can aspire to something is ourselves. And so we encourage you to think about just for a second, if your dreams came true, like literally the beautiful part about dreaming, it's this thing that only we humans can do as far as we know, is to dream of something that doesn't exist in the future. It's a magical, magical thing. And so if you were to dream a little bit, you know, what difference, impact, or contribution do you want to make in your relationships going forward? Not, you know, not a criticism of the past, like Brad said before, but being future focused, thinking about tomorrow and the next day and the next month. You know, what do you want to go to work on when it comes to relationships with your partner, with your family, and with your friends? And we're actually going to give you a chance. We promised to make this as interactive as we possibly could. And so we're actually going to give you a chance to do just that and give you a chance to chat with a few people about this. I saw a question here. Greg says, does this include friends at work if you are the boss? That's an interesting question. So the short answer, I think, Greg, is whatever you think makes sense to you. You know, we do tend to think of work-life balance as like work is one thing and life is another. And we don't think that's terribly healthy, frankly, because we spend a tremendous amount of our time in the workplace. For those of us who work full-time, the majority of our waking hours, frankly, is at work. So does that mean that's not life? We don't think so. We don't think that's a terribly helpful way to think about it. It sort of bifurcates our reality. We get the intent, and it is helpful to slow down and think about, you know, how intentional am I being about creating a more engaged life at maybe at the home front. But fundamentally, we think that the best performing teams are teams that care about each other, that have a shared sense of mission, and they don't need to be like best friends, but the better you get along with people, the more likely you are to produce results. There's a great TED talk from Cy Wakeman, C.Y. Wakeman, and she talks about some of her research in drama and how as much as 20 or 30% of every single day in most workplaces is wasted on drama, which is mind-boggling if you think about it. It's literally non-productive, wasted time talking about other people typically, and with no intentions of helping the other people, but just talking about them. And so if you can create more relationships, if you can increase the size of your relationships with people that you work with, then you're less likely to have that unproductive, non-helpful, you know, drama in your life.
So are we
All
ready
right.
to go ahead, Tom?
I say, let's go ahead and jump into the breakout rooms. We're going to give you, let's see, we'll do 9 minutes, 9 minutes to chat with each other about this question here. You know, again, you can talk about whatever you want, frankly, but we suggest that you use this question as a starting point. You know, what difference or impact or contribution do you want to make in your relationships? And then we'll send you like a 2-minute warning, and then we'll bring everybody back here for the second half of the webinar. And in the meantime, you have to listen to me tell dad jokes because my kids gave me this amazing daily calendar, tear off calendar for the year. and I'm several days behind. So buckle up. Here we go, folks. A persistent banker wouldn't stop hitting on me, so I asked him to leave me alone. How did the hacker get away from the police? He ran somewhere. That's pretty funny. uh, Dad, look, snow is falling. I hope it doesn't get hurt. Which is pretty appropriate because it's snowing and raining and icy and miserable out here in Michigan today. The kids are on a snow day, and my daughter's loving every second of it. What did Spartacus say when the lion ate his wife? This is hard to tell jokes to an empty room. Nothing. He was gladiator. Kevin, at least you can laugh. A polar bear went to a bar and said, "I'll have a gin and tonic." When the bartender asked, "Why the big pause?" the polar bear replied, "I don't know. I've always had them." All right, guys, we got one more. Dad, what animal can jump higher than a house? All of them. Houses can't jump. Doesn't get any better than that. All right. We got about 4 more minutes.
Four more minutes, Tom. Why did you stop? Get back to the jokes.
I could just do them all, I suppose. We got time.
Yeah, I mean,
All right, well then you
Tammy said
gotta
she's listening while
you gotta-
she drives. So
you gotta at least laugh at some of them.
all right.
Some people have trouble sleeping, but I can do it with my eyes closed.
Nice.
we had a guy who attended our church a few years ago. He was a great guy. He's a longtime teacher, and he lost his eyesight over the last 10 years of his life. He would leave church with his cane, like his walking stick. And as he was walking to his car with one of his, like, I think it was his daughter, maybe, he would say to people, "Has anybody seen my car?" That was his joke. All right. What happens if someone slaps you at a high frequency?
What?
It
Tom?
hurts. It hurts.
Thank you.
That's not the same as laughing. My sister. My sister used to hide money in the bushes in our yard. She went on to become a successful hedge fund manager.
That's a hard one.
Did you hear about the truck driver who got a flat tire?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
What
Brad
happened?
has. Apparently, Brad
Hey,
has.
listen, I gotta end my.
It was a wheelie bad time.
Really bad.
What is it called when you're afraid of a giant that lives up a beanstalk?
What is it?
B5 phobia.
Wow.
Brad's laughing. He's a much better audience than you, Kevin.
It's such a dad joke.
Oh, literally, these are all dad jokes from my kids. All right, one more. My partner asked me to take the spider out instead of killing it. We had a few drinks. Pretty cool guy. Says he works as a web developer.
Nope, not even a pity laugh on that one.
No, not even. Yeah, that one's not the best.
All right, I'm going to start closing breakout rooms. We'll be back in 1 minute. And the poll and the quiz will be ready to go whenever you just say the word.
Oh yeah, that's right. Which slide was that? Do you remember? Oh, at the end of the physical, mental, and spiritual, right? Yeah, okay. That'll be slide 18, looks like. All right, welcome back, folks. We're starting to trickle back in. Hopefully that was a fun and productive conversation. Maybe you got to meet some new friends out there in the world, somewhere out there in the world. We are very fortunate to be surrounded by many, many amazing people. And one of my old bosses told me one of the best things you can share with somebody else is your friends. So hopefully we're doing that today, and you got to meet some great people.
So we know we just gave you, 9 minutes to talk about this, and there's up to 7 of you in the breakout room. So I mean, it's a light touch at best. So this might be something that you might want to, talk to a friend about, or your partner or family, or, continue this conversation. And this whole subject of purpose and aspiration and what have you is something that we address in much more depth in the book. And there's some exercises that kind of can help you think about it and what have you. So, but we're going to move on to the empowerment piece now. And this question, how are you empowering yourself to pursue those aspirations? If you're going to empower others at work, you first have to empower yourself. And think about, what do I need to do in order to maintain my energy, etc. So we're going to jump into a series of questions again from our life wheel exercise that we're going to send you at the end here, or make available to you. So the first area is physical fitness. I consciously choose to eat foods that support my health. I exercise regularly. I get sufficient amount of quality sleep. These are three, I mean, we all know this. It's not like it's news. The question is, are we putting these things into action? Are we consciously and actively thinking about these things? And Tom has just moved us on to mental fitness. Given there were only 3 questions there, it was a quickie.
Awesome. So yeah, mental fitness, which we don't think about, by the way, that way. This idea of mental fitness, but it's a really helpful way to pair the words, because we know that we can have physical fitness, but we don't have to think about, like, what am I doing to actively feed my mind? What am I actively doing to maintain my mental fitness? And one of the things I stopped doing probably about a decade ago, thanks to a good friend of mine, Kevin, not Kevin Davis, a different Kevin. And he told me he didn't read the news or watch TV, really didn't watch the news on TV. And I thought at the time, like, what, you can do that as a leader, as a CEO? And I got to tell you, it's been a huge game changer, because, news is not really news anymore, unless you go out and actively seek good sources. Most of it's just fear-based triggers for our brains to get more hooked on it. And it's kind of like feeding ourselves, junk food every day. And not tremendously healthy, especially in the social media age. And so one of the biggest things I've done to protect my own mental fitness is just not eat that stuff, not let it go into my brain in the first place. So here's a few questions that might help on this subject of mental fitness. I don't worry about my financial situation. Yeah, I don't know there's anybody that does this. My wife has worked with multi-millionaires in her job over the years, and even folks that have many millions of dollars still worry about their financial situation. I am not encumbered by excessive worries or guilt. My mood is stable without extreme highs and lows. I engage in activities and learning that promotes my personal growth. I regularly engage in activities that renew my energy, like play, adventure, or leisure. And then finally, I do things to clear my mind of worry or fear. Now, some of you may not like some of these questions, which is fine. We're not saying that these are the best questions in the world. But they are meant to be a little bit provocative. They are meant to get you thinking. But if you just don't like the way the question is worded, then replace it with your own. Find something that's in the same ballpark. Don't let the question distract you from the fundamental idea here, which is, how are you doing in these areas of your life?
And then the next area is spiritual fitness. I have a belief system that sustains me no matter what circumstances life throws at me. That's a big statement. You know, to not be whipsawed by the circumstances in life, but feel like I'm rooted in some larger meaning, in some larger context that gives me power, is really easy to talk about and really hard to do. I have an active spiritual practice, which some sort of spiritual practice is required in order to fulfill the first one, at least in my experience, it is. Lastly, I think about the deeper meaning of life. Not just think about, but I attend to it. I actually nurture having a deeper meaning of life. This is one that, you know, for me, I've just begun to address within the last 10 years or so, frankly. I never really paid much attention to it, and I became very aware of how important it is. So just take a minute, and then we're gonna move into, well, what do you want to do about these?
So quickly, we're going to do a quick poll. Kevin's going to throw up a poll here just to kind of get a gauge for where is everybody at when it comes to these different areas. And if you had to pick one area to focus your energy on over the coming months, would that be physical fitness, your own mental fitness, or your own spiritual fitness? So we'll give you another 15 seconds here to answer that, please, and then we'll show you the results here. Because we're big advocates of, you know, simple is better. You could try to tackle that entire list. You know, Kevin put a link, by the way, in the chat for the entire Engage Life Wheel inventory. It's a 2-page document that we put together. So we encourage you to print that out when you've got some time and go through it and answer the questions, because there's also some great questions on the back of it that you can wrestle with on your own. But again, we're also big believers that just being really focused on one area can be tremendously helpful. So let's see the results here.
Drum roll. The suspense is mounting.
All right, here we go. So mental fitness is the winner. 48% of you. Looks like second place is physical fitness and then spiritual fitness. So yeah, really interesting. So it looks like most of you, pretty good distribution there, but it looks like many of you are really thinking about what can I do to create more mental fitness in my life? What can I do to more actively engage that? And so the questions here are meant to do just that, to get you thinking about, you know, what one area could you leverage to create a more engaged life? You know, what's the low hanging fruit? For me, like I said before, it was just stop reading the news. And that's true. I still read it sometimes, but like probably 5% of what I used to do. And it's not necessarily hard to do. We think it's like, oh, I can't do that. Well, yeah, you can. Just decide to do it. It was relatively low hanging fruit for me, and it made a tremendous difference in my life.
And, you know, these overlap too. These are more like an ecosystem of things that are interdependent, you know. So as you're thinking about what you can do for your mental fitness, I can tell you, I started rollerblading years ago in order to counteract anxiety and kind of keep my brain cleared and keep the cortisol out of it. And I now road bike, and even in the winter, every morning, well, 5 days a week, I get 30 minutes of high intensity, high heart rate exercise in. And when I do, I feel great mentally. And when I don't, I don't. But, you know, whether it's something like that, it's meditation, it's breathing exercises. There's a new area called vagal nerve stimulation, which is literally exercising the vagus nerve, the mind-body connection. And Cleveland Clinic has a great article. And it includes things like exercise and breathing and some other more creative things. So when I think about, from an impact my mental fitness, how do these other areas fit in as well?
All right. So we're back to engagement, right? And earlier we talked about how engagement equals aspiration plus empowerment. But the reality is we think it's actually it's a multiplications, you know, it's aspiration times empowerment, that these two things work together and supercharge each other. And you can't have one without the other, because then things get out of whack. So for instance, a lot of cultures are really focused on, empowering their employees to do whatever they want, to work whenever they want, wherever they want, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But if there's no aspiration, if there's no commitment to something bigger, then people are going to do what they want to do. They're going to stay home when they feel like it. They're not going to work when they don't want to. They're going to expect all these benefits from the organization, like free lunch and free laundry, and it's going to be about them, them, them. And so these things always have to be balancing each other to work effectively together. And when you can do that, it looks more like this. It's a virtuous cycle. You want to talk about this, Brad?
I do, sorry. I scheduled to do a podcast interview at 1 o'clock, and I just realized I'm gonna be 2 or 3 minutes late, so I had to send the guy a note right in the middle of this. So, yeah, this you can see that when you have an aspiration, you get excited about it, you get energized about it. And that energization, if that's a word, actually leads to empowering yourself. And the more empowered you become, the more you engage in whatever it is that you aspire to. And the more you engage, the more it feeds the aspiration. Simply put, success breeds success. But looking at what does it take to succeed, it takes a very clear goal or aspiration. It takes very clear and conscious ways of empowering yourself in order to achieve that goal. And then it takes very conscious ways of engaging, sometimes consciously getting out of our own comfort zone in order to engage. And it's a virtuous cycle. It's not a vicious cycle, it's a virtuous cycle that we can feed intentionally.
And when you start to layer these things on top of each other, you start to see that, here's the 5 foundations that we talked about and how they start to become self-fulfilling. I know that when I'm firing all cylinders in all these areas, I feel better. Like literally, I feel better during the day. I've got more energy. I'm more awake. I'm more attentive. I'm more present with my kids and my wife, and I'm more helpful to my clients. And so all of these things start to interweave like this. And these are a couple images from our book, by the way. So you're getting a little sneak peek of what's in the book here.
So, as we said before, the book goes into a lot of these concepts in far greater depth, and with exercises that not only help you theoretically to think about these things, but also to actually engage in some exercises to help promote conscious thought about it. Now, if you weren't able to join us right at the start, Kevin's going to put another link in the chat for us. In fact, he just did. The Genie Us, the Great Engagement, and wherever you are in the world or in the country, that will take you to your local Amazon connection if you'd like to order a copy of the book.
Which we would love if you did, because it helps us get up the rankings, and it helps us to reach more people out there. We have no delusions of making money off of this book, by the way. We'll be fully transparent about this. It would take probably a decade to recoup the cost that we put into it. And it was never about that. It was never about the money. It was really about how can we help more people out there, more leaders out there. When I was a young CEO, I wish I had a book like this that was full of stories, but pragmatic ideas, things that I could actually put my teeth into and bring into my teams. Because the reality is, even though I had my MBA, I learned a lot about leadership sort of theoretically. I didn't have a lot of sort of concrete knowledge. And so we hope that this book can be that for many more people that we'll never, we may never meet, and that's fine. If we can help just a handful of people out there, and we never even know that happens, then we'll be happy, and we'll have been glad that we spent the time writing the book.
Yes, we aspire to do this so much that we're willing to lose money, which for me is way outside my comfort zone. Which really, this picture is kind of designed to illustrate. I mean, we're a team of 4 people. There's 4 of us who are out here trying to make a difference. And yes, we're looking to grow the team. We're looking to make a bigger impact. And, you know, this book gives us the opportunity to do it. And we really appreciate you being here because that gives us the opportunity to do that.
And I see several of you sending messages to us separately here saying you just bought the book or you just added to your Amazon cart. So thank you. We appreciate that. That's a huge, huge gift for us. And
We appreciate the confidence that you have, you know, in us, that you would make that investment.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So again, download that Engage Life inventory, take a few minutes to complete it. And we'll leave you with one more set of pictures here from this snow day. My wife, she's so talented. She's a CEO, by the way. She runs her own financial technology software called Pocket Nest. For any of you HR folks out there, it's a great employee wellness financial platform. But she's an amazing wife and mother and cook, and she can read all at the same time. And here's our dog Bear. There you go,
And-
Kip. Kip
And
was
she's
out with dog
engaging in
Bear.
asparagus.
That's right. That's right. So with that, we will take just a few minutes to answer any questions that folks may have. And if you need to run, we certainly understand. We always appreciate when things wrap up a few minutes early. So we're right on time. So any questions that we can, I like to call it
Thanks for
questions.
the comment, Tom and Janelle. And
I like to call it-
Marvia, thank you.
questions and attempted answers. So
McKenna,
any
you're
questions, let us
welcome.
know.
Thank you. Mr. Castillo, thank you. You love Bear. Yes, Bear is very cute, even more so in person. Oh, Kip Crandall, thank you. Steve Goldhaber, good luck with the launch. Thank you. We'll take all the luck we can get. Annette, thank you. Kathleen. Peggy Joyce, hi Peg. Kelly Gabry, hi Kelly. This is fun to see all the names. MJ, thank you. Johnny Rodriguez.
Hey,
Wow.
John.
Gene Allstead, good to hear from you, Gene. Thank you. Jeff Capobianco. There's an old friend. Eric Olson, my nephew. Eric.
Literally.
Yeah, literally, he's a banker in the Nashville area. So if you're in Nashville, look him up. He's a good man. I'm a little bit biased, maybe.
Yeah. I forgot to look at the Q&A. Did you get any questions, Kevin, that we can attempt to answer here?
Nope, no one's typed any in there yet or
Okay.
raised their hand. We can turn their mic on so they can ask. You have 4 minutes. Mike Ramberose, though, asked about a book study facilitation. It's a good question.
I don't think we offered one, but that's a good idea. If you're interested in one, Mike, let's pilot it and you know, talk about what it looked like. Maybe we can pilot it with you and then offer it to people. I think that's a spectacular idea.
Yeah, Debbie wants to know if it'll be an audiobook.
Yes, that's the plan. Is our book advisor down in Texas suggested that we wait about 6 months or so and then release the audiobook. So it's going to be a while. And Mike, I think what I'd suggested before was if you wanted to do a book study for your team to buy the book individually versus one large book order. And to Brad's point, we'd love to explore that. We are going to be doing a bit of that with the Interchange this year. And for those of you who don't know, the Interchange is a group of CEOs and school superintendents and executive directors and presidents from across the country who come together once a month to meet. And this year is going to be built around the theme of engagement, not surprisingly. So in a way, we'll be doing it through that, Mike.
So I notice it's 12:57. I'm sure that many of you have 1 o'clock meetings. I know I do. And in order to help us all keep our word, we probably ought to wrap up at this point. So I just want to thank all of you for being here. Thanks for your great comments. Thanks for participating. Thanks for ordering the book. We are honored by your presence. We're honored by the fact that you've invested your valuable time with us here today, and just thank you, and drop us a note if we can help in any way.
Yes, thank you all. Have a wonderful week and a blessed 2024.
Yep.